Hey everybody, Gisele Grenier here. So I want to talk to you a little bit about red paint. So as we go through, our journey of learning about painting, some of you may want to stick with just doing hobby painting, using premixed colors, following a pattern. Some of you may veer off to the other side of doing something a little bit more refined, really honing in on learning about color, maybe doing some fine art, even maybe doing mixed media and really learning to balance the colors. And when you walk into a store and you're flooded with all the choices of paint, I want to focus on the color red and basically give you some tips that might help you choose the right colors and also the different things that you can do with the color red. So I have these in two separate piles for a reason. So I've got two bottles here. I've got the Decor Medium Fluid Acrylics Primary Magenta and the Decor Traditions Red Violet. Then down here what I have is I'm just going to name out the colors. Traditions Transparent Red Iron Oxide, Dazzling Metallics Festive Red, Decor Media Fluid Acrylics, this is Quinacridone Magenta. Then the Traditions of Brown Matter, Naphthol Hue, Naphthol Red, Naphthol Red Light, Permanentalism Crimson, Quinacridone Violet, and then the Decor Americana Craft Paint True Red. So why have I got these colors out? Because they all have something similar and something different, but they all look like they belong in the red family. So first thing I want to do is, I'm going to demonstrate some on paper, but I want to talk to you first about identifying colors as you see them, because this is what you would see walking into a store. So we've got these two. So we'll look at red, violet, and primary magenta. Now the smaller bottles of the fluid acrylics have the complete color index information on the back. The big bottles don't, but I went to Decor's website and was able to download the technical specs for the paint, and then I know what the properties are. So this particular one is PV19, and PV19 means pigment violet. So this is actually a violet pigment. Okay, and if we open it up, I don't know, looks red to me, doesn't it? Well, we're going to check out, we're going to do a little experiment later. And then of course red violet, this one looks violet for sure. Okay, so PV means pigment violet, so we know that. Well, what happens when you come across a color that looks violet? Okay, so that's the Quinacridone Magenta, and this is Quinacridone Violet. It looks violet to me. We're going to experiment that a bit later. But when we turn the label on the back, they're both the same pigment, PR122. PR means pigment red. There is no violet pigment in this, it's pigment red. Now, in saying that, it's the way that the pigments are chosen and processed which determines all their colors. So although when we do our experiment that these will definitely look violet, they are a red pigment. Then we go, oh, let's pick this one. I don't know about you, but to me that looks more of an orange, or just a neutral brown orange. It's a pigment red. It's PR175, Brown Matter. Okay, and this is a pigment I don't use at all, but anymore. Transparent Red Iron Oxide. This is a pigment that's being discontinued. It's discontinued already in the fluid acrylics. Love this color. It's easy to make though. And this one is PR101. It's almost like burnt sienna, which is PBR. It's pigment brown. This is more on the red side. And of course, craft paint, you really can't, there's no pigment numbers with craft paint. With craft paint, with the metallics, I simply just say, yeah, it looks red, it's red to me. Okay, so those ones are pretty easy. Then you've got these Naphthol Hue, Naphthol Red Light. Face value, they're all red, but they do lean a bit different on the color wheel. So the Naphthol Hue looks a bit more on the orange side, where this one here, the Naphthol Red, looks a little bit more neutral or on the blue side. Permanentalism Crimson, PR177 again, pigment red. Looks like a really deep red. And then the craft paint definitely looks red. So what we'll do is we'll focus on, with the red, we'll focus on creating the swatches on the palette, and then we're going to add a little bit of white to see the true underlying colors. And I can't stress enough that that's a great way to really see what the color is made up of. Now, I'm running a little bit low on my titanium white, so what I'm going to do, oh my god, I'm going to use the DecoArt Chalky Gesso, which works just as well for this type of thing, and it's so heavy. The floor is vibrating, which means the camera is vibrating. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to prepare the palette with the paints, and as the ones I'm using, I'll let you know what they are, and then we'll do our experiment. Alright, so I created a little chart, and I was going to explain what I did. So all the paints are laid out here, and they're in the right order here. You can tell this one here is dried out. This is one I don't use a lot. Well, don't use, period. And it's Naphthol hue. And I've got the Chalky Gesso here. What I did is I wrote the names up on top. So what I did is I made a typo here. So I've got the DecoArt Media Fluid Acrylics, DAMFA, Quinacridone Magenta, which is PR122, then the Traditions paints of Quinacridone Violet, Permanent Alizarin Crimson, Naphthol Red, Naphthol hue, Naphthol Red Light, Transparent Red Iron Oxide, Brown Matter, then the Americana True Red, and I put a question mark because I don't know what the pigment is in this, and then the Dazzling Metallics Festive Red with a question mark because I don't know what the pigment is in this one. And then with the next batch will be the Primary Magenta and Red Violet, both PV19, and I forgot to put them out on here, so I'll do that right now. So what I did also on the bottom, I put down the values created with the DecoArt Chalky Gesso. It's important for you to document, get a paper towel, for you to document exactly how you're doing your charts, and hang on to them in a binder. Binders are a really good choice instead of a journal, because a lot of you are getting hung up on creating the perfect journal for your color mixing. Just get it done. So a binder is the best place to do that. So you need to be able to document everything as you go through, because even myself, in my color mixing book that I created years ago, I still refer back to it when I'm looking for something specific, especially when I don't have a particular color. I'll kind of look back to see how I can make it up. Face it, as we get older, we tend to forget, so documenting it is the best way. The other way is actually doing the work and not just watching the video, because once you apply what you've learned, it helps commit it to memory. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a square with the pure color, and then I'm going to add the white to create, sorry, I'm going to put white here and then add a bit of that color just so we can see the true underlying color. And this is where the magic happens. Not saying you have to do that in your actual artwork, but this is a way to identify paint. Now I know some of you are saying, well, I don't have all these colors. What's the point? Use the colors you have. So likely if you're watching this, you probably have a whole bunch of craft paint in that. And I've been getting emails for years of people saying my paintings don't look consistent. They don't look harmonious. They don't look level. And level to me, I would mean it's not balanced. It's because you're using the colors, the wrong colors on the color wheel, and they just don't go together. All right, so let's get started. So we have the Quinacridone Magenta. Now the DecoArt Fluid Acrylics, they are more transparent. All right, so now if I just pick up some white. Now, to me, this definitely looks like it's violet, but it's a red pigment. Red pigment. So this is why it's important to know your color index numbers, your identifiers as to what makes up the paint, because on face value you may think, oh, I'm just going to get it looks purple, so I'm going to buy it. Well, it's a red pigment, so although because red and violet are next to each other on the color wheel, it won't make that much of a dramatic effect. But if you're putting it towards a color that's complete opposite, a contrasting color that just won't match, it'll just clash. And so that's why it's nice just to know what the color, what the PR, PVs, PGs, PYs, POs, PBs, what all that stuff means. Alright, so what I'm going to do though is I did this backwards. I'm going to add white here, and it should stay dry long enough. Should we keep going? Should I keep adding white? Should I? I think I'll taking a chance. Oh, I got a little bit of violet in there. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take the Traditions quinacridone violet. So a color that says is violet, but when in fact it's a red. It looks very similar, a little bit deeper. So although the name says violet, so should we buy the paint just based on the name? Look at that. Now the color may be a little bit darker because I didn't add it, as much white. So let's add a little bit more white to see. They look very, very, very similar. Isn't that neat? But this one here doesn't look as violet. It looks like it had a little bit more red to it. So you have to ask the question when you look at the initial color, what's the first color you see? Well, look at think of the color wheel. So do you see more red, more blue, or more yellow? If it's neither of those, go to your secondaries. Do you see more red? Do you see more orange? Do you see more yellow? Do you see more yellow green? Do you see more green? Do you see more blue? Do you see violet or red? Think of the other colors, and then from there, when you add the white, you say, okay, well, does it lean one way or does it lean another way? And that's going to help you identify what color this really is. So let's go on now to the Permanent Alizarin Crimson. This one I have in my core palette. This is DecoArt's substitute for pure alizarin crimson, which is fugitive, which means it fades quickly in light. Oh, this stuff is drying. Uh-oh. Okay, less talking, more painting. Definitely looks red. That's a definite. Easy peasy. So PR177 definitely looks red. So I'm going to continue on doing these, and especially these next ones here are definitely a red. There's no question about it. So I'll just continue doing these, and you can watch or you can skip ahead until I get to the neutral colors. So I'm going to keep going here, and so we see the reds. As they dry, they get a little bit darker. I'm just going to tilt this. So this Naphthol Lachu looks more of a looks like more brown. So transparent red iron oxide. This is one of the colors that was discontinued in the fluid acrylics line, which is too bad because that's part of my core colors, but you can make something easy, simple with burnt sienna, using medium and with a touch more red. It's very hard to color match single pigments because they are single pigments. So color matching involves 2 or more pigments. Brown matter, PR175. See, face value, it just looks brown, but when you add the white to it, it looks violet. That one's a really cool one. So the Americana True Red, I have no idea what's in this. So face value, it looks red. When we add it to the white paint, is it a red that leans towards blue or a red that leans towards orange? And to me, it's a red that leans towards blue. Alright, definitely no orange in that one. Now the Festive Red, this one I really wouldn't do it with metallic paint because, metallic paint, there's such limited colors in metallics. But you can do the same experiment. All you're going to do is lose the shine. So the festive red is a red that leans towards blue. There is definitely no orange in that one. Interesting. All right, so now let's go down to the, now these ones are the actual violets. So this one here is an easy peasy one. And this is, I have these backwards. Hold on a second. These are backwards. This is red violet, and this is primary magenta. I also put the white in the wrong spot. Oh my goodness. Alright, so let's just do it up here. So this one's an easy one. This is definitely a violet. So with this I could turn around and say, oh, what are these which ones of these colors leans closer towards this? Easy to see, really easy to see. All of these up here, this is more orange, and more on the blue side. So that's easy to see how when you add the white, you know, even add a bit more white to this one here, it's much easier to see where they lean. Okay. And now the primary magenta, face value, it kind of looks like a reddish color. Put it into white. So you can think of this looking very similar to these up here. This one has a little bit more blue in it, will know better when it dries. It's even close to this one if I add even more white to it. But it's a pigment violet. It's just how it's processed. How it's processed, heat, you know, there's all this other stuff, and the processing is proprietary to the manufacturer. But I think this is what makes it cool, is that on face value, the paints might not necessarily turn out the way you want when painting. So take away from this, learn the color index numbers. If there isn't a color index number, then what you can do is, a lot of times you can buy little sample bottles, and if you can't, well, craft paint is pretty cheap, like in cost, so you know you can buy that. But there is a set of colors. Usually the manufacturers will have like something like primary red, primary blue, primary yellow. Decor does with their craft paint, so you know you can kind of go with those. But at whatever paint you have, take the reds, add the white to them the way that I did, and then maybe take a couple of violets just so you can compare to see where they lean on the color wheel. Because you don't need to put orange down, because if they lean towards violet, then whatever's left over that doesn't look violet, like these, they lean towards orange, red orange. So take a look at those, see what you've got, you know, observe, you know, the color index numbers versus what you thought you saw at face value. So pretty interesting that all of these lean more towards blue, except Naphthol red light and transparent red iron oxide. These lean towards orange. All right, so I hope this little demonstration, you know, you learned a little bit from this, and that you'll give your color chart a try. So what to do is, when you've done it, either the links are in the description below. Either head on over to my Facebook page or the community and post your pictures there. That way you can see what's going on. If you're watching this on YouTube, you obviously can't post pictures there, but go over to the other two, and because that's where I'm hanging out, answering questions and stuff like that. Alrighty, so hope you enjoyed this, and until I see you in the next demonstration, stay inspired.